Good evening, everyone. Hope everybody is feeling well. It's been a long day for me, I'm sure for everybody else, but hopefully you're feeling chipper like I am. This is an important meeting in that by the nature of our process is we go from a fairly broad funnel and we start to narrow things down. So this is the first milestone from when where we go from considering a broad range of issues to a narrower range of issues. And we call this the project concept hypothesis. What we're going to walk through is show you how we, let's say where you, yeah, you were fine where you were. How we took criteria, which we developed in partnership with a broad stakeholder group, how we applied that criteria to data and facts, and push that into a project concept. It is not a definitive final project concept, but it is a clear direction as to where we're going. That then has implications as to where the project should be best sited to create the best option for where it should be located to deliver benefits and values to the city of New London. So we're going to go through that relatively briskly, but hopefully not too briskly that you can't follow. And we'll have a brief conversation after that, and then we'll wrap up with next steps so that you understand the process. And the meetings that Councilman Goodwin was referring to will be outlined again. So as we move into it, we want to first talk about the applying the criteria. And the very first thing we're going to start with is the same thing that we'll start every meeting with. It's the same thing that we introduced into our proposal, which is our take, which we pressure tested as to New London's values that start to inform us as to what the criteria must be. The first is we want to make sure that New London functions as one community. So that's our theme. Diverse constituents functioning as one community. And this building needs to be a catalyst towards bringing that together. The second is that one community is what we actually mean. We don't want to define that narrowly. So there's going to be something in it for every household, every family, with a focus on things that help create a community that's thriving with well-being, with a particular focus on how the children in the community are raised and how they develop. First and foremost, this is a community development, economic development initiative. So we want to make sure that the ascension that the city of New London is experiencing continues for industries and family alike. You have surrounding communities that you can tap into and benefit from. We want to take the economic resources and bring them into New London to make this project maximally affordable to the citizens of New London. And in so doing, we want to make sure that we do it from a long-term perspective so that we can ensure the center's long-term financial viability. So that is our focus. We then want to move forward and channel it even more specifically into how we want to think about this project. And I won't go through this in a lot of detail, but we went through a series of criteria developing exercises where we asked a series of questions about resident quality of life. These are all outcome goals where we talked about recruitment and retention for residents and businesses, how we want to create community building, and ultimately also financial performance. And so we went through that and we came up with some outcomes that we put into 4 chapters. What's the project concept and what's the priority programming, architectural and construction quality, the target market and financial accessibility, which has everything to do with affordability, and then how are we going to operate the building and what kind of financial metrics are we going to come up with. So We have 4 full chapters for that, but we summarize those chapters this way. The center is a combination of a traditional community center and a public recreation center. Those are 2 independent building typologies that are known in the industry. And this is what is going to be known as a fusion building that has elements of each. So it's not just going to be sports, and it's not just going to be computer labs and arts and crafts, but it's going to make sure it's something for the entire community. It's going to be a fusion of both elements. So it will be multi-generational and have broad appeal. Physically, the building should signify the city's commitment to community well-being. So we're going to want to have something that is a step above a pedestrian functional building, but we also want it to be a cost-effective and pragmatic building. So it's going to have dramatic form, but it's not going to have a liberal application of expensive materials, because affordability needs to be first and foremost in our minds every step that we take. Nobody is going to be locked out, as we said in the previous slide. So there will be a system of accommodating every resident regardless of their ability to pay. To do that, we want to make sure that we manage the facility what we're calling aggressively entrepreneurial. That goes back into tapping into the financial resources of the markets that neighbor the city of New London, so we can bring in those patrons to create a cross-subsidization effect, so that people with low and moderate incomes can enjoy the benefits of this facility. Now, we arrived at these chapters through, you can see the list on the right. That's a sampling of the people that we talked to, but we've been very busy since the last time you heard from us, interviewing all the community stakeholders. So where we are right now, we're not finished. We're feeling pretty confident about where we are, but we're taking that criteria and we're pressure testing it by facts and data. And the process that we're going through, first we set criteria, we looked at demographic analysis, we looked at the competitive environment, where are the other facilities that people might enjoy, both public and private, inside New London and adjacent to New London. We created a participation analysis for all the various activities under consideration. We converted that into demand projection modeling, so that we could start to size each facility or each element of the facility to accommodate the demand being placed on it. So those are the activities that we went through. And first and foremost, if you go to the next slide, Katie, we want to make sure that you understand that every decision regarding the center's program, location, and operation will be made with the residents of New London at the forefront of our minds. This is all about you. It's not about us. So with that in mind, we're going to go into the project concept that has resulted from that process. And hopefully, as we explain the various components, it'll all make perfect sense to you. So Katie, take it from there, please.
Yeah, as Paul described in the criteria section, the project concept really is that combination of the building type community center and the facility type of a recreation center. So the community recreation center, we've approximated square footage based on what we think the program needs to be, but this is, again, like Paul mentioned, very preliminary. We've been busy and we're not finished yet. So some of the key points of our project concept are community recreation center, the main priority being youth and development and family wellness. That's the focus. We think that certain program elements could have a regional draw. We're about to go through the major program elements now, but to highlight, they include a 2-court gym, a 6-lane swimming pool, a leisure aquatics facility, a fitness center, multipurpose rooms, and potentially other elements like an outdoor ropes course if possible. Starting off with my personal favorite, I could spend a lot of time playing knockout in a gym like this. This is a 2-court gymnasium with retractable bleachers around 1 court. So you could host local tournaments, leagues, open play, as well as all different sports, basketball, volleyball, futsal, and other kinds of programming. We based the 2-court approach on competitive context knowledge of what's available around, and also participation analysis from the demographics. Looked like over 18,000 potential basketball participants within a 30-minute drive. So there's some pretty big market forces pointing us towards a 2-court gymnasium. Also has some strong criteria alignment here.
Yeah, so as Katie mentioned, when we assess the competition in the area against what profiles nationally for this facility type, we saw some notable gaps. And of course, as Paul mentioned, the criteria setting that was established, we vetted that against those gaps to really figure out the best or right size for this facility type. And certainly we'll have to discern whether or not a 2-court gymnasium with spectator seating is most appropriate versus accommodating multiple sports and activities in a larger setting, whether it be a MAC court, as noted here, as an alternative, or organize or configure the courts in a different way, or add a 3rd court.
And for those of you who aren't recreational sports facility junkies, MAC is an acronym that stands for multi-activity court.
Next major element in our concept is aquatics. So our concept includes both a lap pool, a 6-lane lap pool that could host athletic events at the local level, learn to swim, swimming activities, and swim team practices, as well as a leisure pool that could be more for families or recreational swimming, not in the lap lanes. Could also have a kid-friendly element, whether it's a slide as pictured or some play element. This also aligns with our market research on the number of swimmers in the area, potentially based on our participation analysis.
Likewise, to the limited court space, there's a few indoor pools in the area, and with limited accessibility for those pools that are available. So we really will want to pressure test whether or not competitive pool, 6 lanes to 8 lanes is something that would be a regional draw, would be a necessity, would be worth the prioritization.
The fitness center could include, your standard cardio, free weight, strength training, and also spaces for functional fitness, for personal training and boot camps, etc. And then also we've looked at a jogging track or an indoor running track as well. This is really backed up by the data we saw. If we look only at frequent participants and only at a 15-minute drive, so not even 30, but even hyper locally, there's a high number of frequent participants that would use these spaces. And we got to kind of a size estimate based on, industry knowledge and assumptions about how much space you need at peak times and to accommodate different populations. So that's the main driver of our size estimate in our project concept here.
Yeah, certainly scale will be something that we'll have to determine, but to accommodate a broad demographic such as this community, we would have to prioritize this scale of a dedicated space for weightlifting, physical fitness, whether it be plate loaded, free weights, functional training, and an elevated indoor track has a strong draw for people to be able to exercise year round, especially in the Northeast corridor.
As part of our project concept, we've also planned a lot for multi-purpose spaces, or that looks more like a classroom type setting or more of a group exercise or multi-purpose room in that setup. These are very flexible. That can be all kinds of fitness, yoga, Pilates, etc. And especially, I know we've heard from our stakeholder interviews that music, arts, and youth programming, whether it's youth leadership development, academic assistance, and that sort of thing, those are the kinds of activities we imagine prioritizing in these multi-purpose spaces that are in our project concept.
The key for this will be really determining quantity, configuration, dedicated square footage for these types of multi-purpose spaces. We'll have to do a pressure test, prioritize, exercise coupled with activities or arts and crafts to leisure, so that it runs the spectrum of what could be done in these spaces, and to determine the flooring materials for this, how it can be configured in different setups, we'll all be a part of scrubbing this to really just discern what would be best and most appropriate. We'll probably do some mock scheduling as well to see how best we can maximize the space to accommodate as many.
Thanks. And I know we're going to move on to keep on time, but just as a disclaimer, I'd like to share that we've gone over the 4 major program elements. These are the biggest things that were demand driven that we need to think about as far as scale, but these are not the only spaces that will be included. We're also doing our analysis work to evaluate the need for office space, circulation, locker rooms, all kinds of things. We just wanted to focus on the highlights here today. Moving on to site selection, Bill, do you want to talk about our development factors we looked at?
Sure. This is Bill Mikens, Vice President with Brailsford and Dunleavy, and I've been helping out with the site selection piece of the work. And so we've talked about the program, which is the physical, space needed to accommodate all the activities within the center. But we also need to talk about, where to put it and the most appropriate or practical site to locate it on. So we thought this would be a good place to just take a moment, talk about the interrelationship between the program, the site, and quality, because with a fixed budget, all those things are interrelated. So if you start to change one, it has an impact on the other. So for example, if you're looking at a site that has a lot of cost to develop, that's going to have an impact on program and or quality. Which could potentially also, if you impact the program, you could potentially impact the rec center's ability to generate revenue and really to accommodate, patron demands. So just wanted to put that on the table because one of the things we're going to be talking about is site development cost as we go through this. As far as process, so what sites did we look at? So we started with a real estate database. We use CoStar, which identifies all available properties in the area and kind of their characteristics. So we start with that, as well as coordinating with Director Reyes and the Parks and Rec folks to identify sites, combine those together, and we came up with a list of about 8 sites, which we were able to whittle down to about 6 pretty quickly because the 2 of them weren't feasible. So then we did a preliminary analysis of the site's ability to actually physically accommodate the program, which is going to be a big factor in determining these sites. So then we're going to review those with you, what we're doing today, and then we'll also go over this in the with the task force and in the town hall and get the feedback from those engagements, and then we'll do a more detailed evaluation, come back to council and present, and do a public vetting before the final approval. Oh, sorry. You can stay there. That note was that, the minimum site that we're looking for, we need approximately 4 acres to accommodate the building, the parking associated with the building, which is about 200 spaces, a little over 200 spaces, as well as all the site accommodations such as setbacks and stormwater management, that kind of thing. So keep that in your mind. 4 acres is what we're looking for. As I said, we looked at a number of sites, and we ended up with 5 to do a more detailed analysis on, those being 126 Green Street, and we'll go into more details so you can see more specifically where these are located. A Bank Street location, which is downtown, that's item B. Bates Woods Park, I think that you all are familiar with, out by the high school, the old Edgerton School property, which is item D, and then Fort Trumbull, located near the state park on the waterfront.
So the first one, as Bill mentioned, was 126 Green Street. This is a city-owned, kind of currently used as parking lots downtown. Just under 2 acres is the footprint here. We looked at some pros, specifically Civic Pride, New London brand being in that downtown location would be strong, as well as supporting existing development and pedestrian and transit access. The biggest con was the narrow footprint. The total footprint being small is one challenge, but an additional challenge just being that space, the way it's configured so narrowly, really creates hurdles on the development side. There would also be parking challenges if you have parking not only for the new center that you're making, but also it's being currently used as a parking lot. So that would have to be solved another way, another challenge.
We talked about site development risk a little bit in the interrelationship piece. So we went through as part of this exercise and evaluated each site from a development cost risk. So we don't know everything right now, and we're just focused on the things that are important to move the plan forward. But we know enough to make some informed judgments about the likelihood of these sites from a cost standpoint. So as Katie indicated, the site's really long and narrow. It's not conducive to meeting the minimum program, it wouldn't make for an efficient design. So what would happen is we would have to go vertical with the program, which is going to be more cost. It's going to cost more, and we would need to obviously demolish the existing parking and abate whatever's there. As well as with all these sites, there's going to be the potential for environmental remediation. And we don't know what exactly that is, but with any site, there's going to be that potential. So for those factors in mind, we scored this site as a high cost risk.
The next one we looked at was 234 Bank Street. So this is kind of that parcel at the corner here, as you can see in the map on the right. It's a little bit bigger at about 2.5 acres. It's not all that far from Green Street. So some of the pros you'll see are similar as far as strength of development, the strength of civic pride in the brand, and then pedestrian access being on the waterfront in that downtown stretch. The property acquisition cost here, since it is privately owned, are a major con, as well as schedule risks and other parking issues.
So from a development cost risk standpoint, as Katie indicated, this property is privately owned, so we're going to have to acquire the property. So that's a cost starting off, and the footprint itself is not big enough to fit the program. So we'd have to look at structuring the building program and or the parking, which is going to be more expensive. It's in a great waterfront site, but it's also within the floodplain, the 100-year floodplain. So we don't know the exact accommodations that would have to be put in place. We know there is a chance that it could be flooded, but we also know that we can also mitigate that impact through grading or foundation design and drainage. And we know that the requirements for a commercial property aren't the same as residential property, so that gives some flexibility, but it's still a consideration nonetheless. And the fact that there's an existing building here, so that would need to be demolished and abated, as well as there's some potential for environmental remediation. So similar to Green Street, we rated this site as a high cost risk.
The next one we looked at is out at Bates Woods Park, kind of next to the Sportsplex. We have those ballparks and picnic pavilions there on the north side. And there's a large wooded area with various marshy and unknown environmental characteristics below there. The footprint is not as big of a concern here. We've drawn out about 3.5 acres there, but there is more flexibility on the footprint size. So that is one of the pros that we've listed here as a benefit, could accommodate a targeted building footprint. And it could complement other civic assets given that it's right there by the park. Some cons that we've looked at include limited pedestrian access, as well as site-specific costs that Bill can get into here. Yeah,
from a development cost standpoint, obviously the sloping site is going to require a lot of grading and a lot of retaining walls, which are more expensive than building, say, on a flat site. So that's going to add some cost premium. Potential environmental accommodations, since we're clearing existing tree canopy, there's mitigation that's going to be associated with that, planting or identifying property somewhere else to offset that clearing. Another factor is that since the site is located so far from the road, is going to have to bring utilities in a longer span than we would have certainly with the first two sites that we looked at, which were within the kind of urban grid. So that would be additional costs. And as I said, with any site, potential environmental remediation. So for those factors, obviously it's an attractive site from a square footage standpoint. Overall rated this as a medium cost risk.
The next site we looked at was the Edgerton School property. This is privately owned next to the Veterans Memorial Ball Field. It's on the smaller side. It's about 3.3 acres. It does have a pro in that it captures a large target market within a short travel time. It's given its location near the city, near some of the surrounding areas. And it does have pretty strong vehicle, pedestrian, and transit access, making access kind of a strong point here. On the con side, there is that existing structure there. And also it's privately owned. So between those two, there could be some cost for site acquisition and demolition. And then it's also on the smaller side. So a big con from our analysis is how to accommodate the required building footprint plus parking, plus other site considerations like Bill mentioned, including setbacks and everything in such a small footprint.
Yeah, so Katie hit on it. Land acquisition cost, demolition of the existing building and abatement, potential environmental remediation. But I think that, it's on the cusp of being a large enough site, but there will be some, combination of probably vertical stacking of a program. And so for that reason, the combination of these reasons rated this as a medium cost risk.
And the final site we looked at was Fort Trumbull. This is the city-owned property adjacent to Fort Trumbull State Park. It is larger. It's about 7.4 acres. And on the pros side, we evaluated support for existing and new development, space for new development and expansion, accommodation of the footprint, and potential for timely development. In terms of schedule considerations, we can look at this property and make kind of a clear timeline or schedule, whereas at some of the other properties, there's a lot of unknowns. This one has a clearer path for timely development. Cons would be pedestrian access, potential to share this facility, and then Bill can speak to the site development cost here.
Yeah, so similar to the Bank Street site, this site we would need to consider potential flood accommodations. Similar to Bank Street, we know that that can be accommodated. Certainly on this site, maybe probably more so than Bank Street, by grading and getting the building portion at least up out of the floodplain, leaving the parking maybe below. And then of course environmental remediation, and there already been some studies on this site, so we know there's some issues to deal with here. But I think for those factors combined, or still, as Katie said, this site has a lot of knowns, more knowns than unknowns. So we rated that as a low cost risk. And we divided it into 6 different categories. Design and development. So really looking at what's the ability of this site to impact development, either existing development around it or to serve as a catalyst for new development. Transportation, obviously it's a big issue. People have got to be able to get to the site. So we looked at travel time for multiple modes of transportation, car, mass transit, pedestrian, biking. Schedule, as Katie indicated, one of the things we're doing is trying to identify, a clear development schedule for this property or for the rec center itself. So we looked at that, what are the potential constraints or opportunities from a timeline standpoint. Site suitability. If you remember, we talked about the program would require about 4 acres of site to fully fit the program. So looking at, how can each of these individual sites accommodate that, as well as looking at, making sure that we want to minimize any kind of environmental or historic cultural impacts or cost and economics. So what is the efficiency of building the project, but also is there impact on the rec center's ability to generate revenue from operations? And lastly, energy and utility considerations. So does the site have access to existing? Are there opportunities like a microgrid or access to a central plant? Here's the evaluation factors and applied those to each of the, 5 sites. Green Street's not indicated on this diagram because after evaluating it some more, we just felt like it just wasn't feasible from the square footage standpoint. There wasn't enough square foot to accommodate.
Even the minimum program would not fit there, so we excluded that one from the scoring here.
Right, and the parking issue. Not only are you displacing the existing parking, but you'd have to accommodate new parking for the rec center. So looking at the numbers, and we'll go into the numbers in a little bit more detail. Fort Trumbull emerged as the most practical location. If you look at the overall score at the bottom, from left to right, Bank Street 299, Bates Woods 339, Edgerton property 355, and Trumbull 419, with the higher score being the better score. And really looking at the breakdown of, where's the biggest difference between Fort Trumbull and the other sites. You can see transportation is probably a big one, right? Fort Trumbull is scored, came out as a 65 as opposed to, say, Edgerton that was a 90. So a big difference there as a negative. But then you start to look at site suitability. Fort Trumbull scoring the highest of the set. Cost and economics was a large piece of it. I think Fort Trumbull clearly above the other sites, as well as schedule from a confidence level of being able to implement this project in a timely manner. Fort Trumbull was able to rise above the others. And so, so we looked at this and then we looked at, take cost out of the equation and how would they score? And you can see it's Fort Trumbull is still number 1, followed closely by the Edgerton property. So for those reasons, Fort Trumbull, we believe is still the most practical, even if you take cost out of the equation. Thanks, Katie.
Sure.
And we have some detailed scoring. This kind of just shows you the level of detail that we went through in scoring each of the sites. You can see broken down by each category. So it was pretty intensive effort. I think that wraps up the site selection piece of it. And I guess at this point, we're going to open it up for Q&A, and then I think we can close with next steps.
All right, thank you, B and D. So at this point in time, I will entertain questions from the 2 counselors that are on the committee first, 2 questions each, and then I'll open up for the remaining counselors before circling back. Counselor Sadi, can we start with you, sir? Do you have any questions? Counselor Sadi, do you have any questions? Councilor Notatas.
Thank you, Chairman. A good one. The first question, and doesn't matter who takes this on the team, but the first question is, you've got lots of experience. Is it typical that you spend the time, you do your due diligence, you give us the one that you think is going to work? Was there any other time when you had a project this large where we didn't go with the highest point, highest recommendation? And if so, what did that look like? I'm curious.
No,
That's my first question.
Yeah, we're pretty disciplined about going through the process. And so if there's any reconsideration.
And excuse me, if you could just state your name before speaking. So
I'm sorry. Yeah, this is Paul Brailsford with being, revisiting it would go back and look at how we weighted the various categories to see if it would come up with a different result. Sometimes the scores may not resonate with what is in somebody's gut, and so we spent a lot of time thinking about it. And if you go back,
so my question is specifically: have you done another project for another city where they came back to you and said, I know that you're recommending this site, but we're going to choose this site? That's the question.
Oh, no.
Okay. My second question is, now that you've scored and you've done your due diligence, what's the next step?
Yeah, the next step is we've made a lot of assumptions and we've done a lot of preliminary analysis. So now we've got to prove out some additional assumptions to make sure that they actually stand up. Mm-hmm. We need to bring some additional detailed analysis that we haven't done yet. For example, you saw that we had a configuration of multipurpose rooms and meeting rooms. The next step, we think that that's about the right on a macro level, but now we have a bunch of different decisions in terms of how do we deal with them acoustically? Do we have the right amount of storage associated with it and make sure that they're flexible? We're assuming they're accommodating a series of constituent groups. Let's put that on the schedule to make sure that the two constituents that we think we can accommodate don't want to show up in the same 3:00 on the same Thursday. Mm-hmm. We could actually, so we're going to that next level of analysis to make sure that our preliminary assessment of accommodation actually plays out when we look at it in greater detail.
And how long does that take? What's the time frame roughly?
We're going to go through that at the end, but we're finished. We're scheduled to be finished in the end of December. So we're moving. Okay. So we're going to keep on chugging, and some of that we've already started. It's just not to the point where it's in a presentable fashion yet.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have, Chair Goodwin.
Okay.
All right. At this point in time, I will open the floor up for questions from any other councilors. We'll start with Councilor Dice.
This is Councilor Dice. I didn't have any question at this time because the one thing that I was concerned about was accessibility for all the residents here in New London, having an opportunity to utilize the facility. So I was thankful to see that that is something that they're looking at, and I can't wait to hear how we would, the next step in making sure all of our children get a chance to benefit from the facility. Councilor Dice, thank you.
Yeah. I know that wasn't the question, but can I just put one comment to your comment? I mean, okay. One of the things that we really were concerned about, particularly one of the reasons we focused so much on the cost of developing each site, and we believe our budget is going to be fixed regardless of site. And so if we went to one of those more expensive sites, which had some locational attributes, but we had to go vertical, or we had to spend a lot of money on site development, the amount of money that would be left over for the building would be less. So a smaller building in a more convenient location, that's a major trade-off. And so one of the things that is you have to say, do you want to take an extra 5 minutes to get there, but have much more there when you get there? Or do you want it slightly more convenient, but it's something smaller? And we also want to consider, can we generate all the speculative revenue at that location that we're looking for. If not, then we don't have the resources to subsidize the fees down as far as we want. So it all works together. And so when you look at it on that one criteria, location, Fort Trumbull did not score the best. But when you put everything on balance, the building that is there would be much better, probably generate more revenue. That's why it started to surface to the top.
Thank you for clarifying that. That was actually an important note for everyone to pick up on. At this point in time, Councilor Booker, do you have any questions or comments?
Yes, thank you, Councilor Goodwin, Chairman Goodwin. I just have one quick question in regards to, on the last slide on Fort Trumbull, you mentioned that FEMA designates 1% chance of flood in a given year. Can you provide the year of when this research was documented? And because there has been a lot of environmental changes in the past 5 years. So I'm just curious as to the data, as to when did you actually receive this data, what year? If you could just give some insight on that, I would greatly appreciate it.
Thanks, Council. Go ahead, Bill. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, I can take that one. Yeah, I don't have the exact year. But this is Bill Mikens from Brailsford and Dunleavy. I don't have the exact year in front of me. We can get that information. As Paul said, we still have some more due diligence to do. So that's one of the things that we would be drilling down on this site. Councilor Booker.
All right. Thank you very much, Bill. A great look. I'm looking forward to you providing that data for us. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Was that the only question, Councilor Booker?
Yes, no further questions, Chairman Goodwin.
Councilor Burke.
Thank you very much, Chair Goodwin. I have no questions at this time. Just a quick comment that, thanking you for the presentation. Most of the questions I will have, I think will be in the future, after you've gone on to some next steps. But I just want to thank everybody very, very much for the presentation.
Thank you, Councilor Burke. That's actually a great point to note that this is a work in progress. While we're soliciting feedback, concerns, constructive criticism, please note that they are to take this back, internalize it, and apply it to what is to come next. It is definitely a work in progress. I think the only question that I have at this point in time would be, what, if any, constraints would any new facility of this sort enter in the market due to that? Has that been factored into the equation? Whereas we have a YMCA now, I'm assuming that's already been factored in, but if there were other things of this nature to open up across the bridge or down yonder, what would that risk apply to us soliciting that revenue or competing with?
Well, obviously, it depends on the nature of what might open up, whether or not it is intended to be directly competitive or whether it is just eating into part of the market that we thought we'd be able to enjoy. We don't know about price points. There's so many things. It's hard to say exactly whether it would have impact or not. The one thing that I'm fairly confident about is if we thought we were going to end up with more budget, we'd probably be recommending something a little bit bigger. So our best possible project right now is probably going to be sized such that we could tolerate a little bit of siphoning off of demand. So we don't envision that we're building to the edge of demand. We're more building to the edge of the budget, and that is why we're so concerned about implications of site cost, because we don't want to shrink the project anymore if we can avoid it.
The other thing I'll add, and this is Katie from B&D. Thanks for the great question on kind of the market impact. In the competitive context analysis that we looked at, one note that I evaluated in our process was kind of the opposite effect of competitors or other types of facilities leaving the market. There was an Anytime Fitness nearby, I want to say a neighboring town, that ended up closing. And then with post-COVID, I think that we'll see more of that, at least depending, at least in the fitness center market. I know there's other services and other amenities that the center will provide besides just the fitness center. But on the fitness center competitive context side, we're looking at the opposite thing potentially happening with COVID.
This is Jeff Sassine from Brailsford and Dudley as well. And I would also just add that it's a very salient point, Curtis, and when we look at building the financial modeling for the particular site that's determined, it's important to look at that cost recovery and look at the demand on speculative revenue. But it galvanizes the approach to focus on New London residents as the primary user group. So we don't want to drift away from that criteria. So we're in a position where if something were to come in to create a competitive disadvantage, it would put us in a position of potential profit loss.
Well, one thing we know from the site analysis, the new competition is not going to come in within the city. So it'll be in a neighboring town. There'll be nothing like this that could be reasonably developed within the city.
Got it. And what aspect or what role does sustainability play in what's to come?
Philosophically, I mean, we're very conscious about sustainability. I can't remember who asked the question now, but they talked about floodplain and the relevance of when the floodplain analysis was done, because the planet is warming, and everybody knows that at some point in the future, the lakefront in the city of Buffalo is going to be the new Miami Beach, right? Eventually. So I'm being a little bit facetious, but I lost my train of thought. I apologize, but we're trying to take everything into consideration that we possibly can. You'll see that our analysis will become increasingly rigorous, and you guys should become increasingly confident that we're nailing it. For those of you who really are up for some real detailed analysis, you're going to have a good time trying to digest the financial analysis that we generate. It'll be probably a 15 to 20 page integrated spreadsheet that takes everything into account, and we look at it really carefully.
This is Katie from B&D, and to add to that, as far as sustainability, we in the site criteria, in our project criteria, we focused on both environmental sustainability in terms of energy and utilities and that kind of thing, but also, and maybe Jeff can speak to this as well, thinking about sustainability functionally. So we don't want something to be kind of a short-term interest. So from the multipurpose room program development to all the other spaces that we're designing, and even the way the building ends up getting laid out, which we're not there yet. When we get there, we want something to be able to be used decades from now if the hot new sport is something different than what people are currently playing. I mean, we don't know what that is now, but we want to program the building in a way that's maximally adjustable or flexible as demand changes or as things change over time.
Thank you for that. Do any other councilors have any final questions? Seeing none, Director Reyes, if you have any final thoughts or anything that you want to weigh in, I'll yield the floor to yourself. Otherwise, I'll turn it over to the B&D to give us next steps.
Perfect. Thank you. Just a couple things. I do see a lot of members of our task force on this call, and I appreciate that team being on this evening and taking a look at this for the first time with the rest of the public. Tomorrow at 6 o'clock, there will be a focus group with the task force. And then on Wednesday, we were going to have the town hall. So just want to remind all the residents that are on here, please tune in. That's going to be an interactive presentation, and your role in that is absolutely critical. So please be there. That's Wednesday at 6 o'clock. The city web page, the calendar has the Zoom link on it. If you go to our city website, you'll see that for the 21st. And for the task force, there is a Go meeting set up that Lori DeLuca will send out from the rec department. And I will be sending out a call-in number for those members if they prefer to call in, and we'll do that tomorrow. tomorrow. So that's all I have. Again, just thank you, Curtis, for having this presentation, giving us this time this evening, and I appreciate B&D's effort to this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Reyes. All right, at this time, B&D, I'll yield the floor to you guys to give us last remarks and let us know next steps.
Katie, before you jump into that, I've now recovered from my poorly timed moment that and the path I was on is that B&D does have an internal energy and sustainability group, and all of our projects do get reviewed by them. So we'll be making recommendations as to the building systems and whatnot to make sure that it's the most appropriate systems for the environment.
Great. On our near-term milestones, Felix stole the thunder a little bit because the main things that I was going to talk about were the things that he just mentioned, which is the task force focus group tomorrow evening, which we're really excited to talk to the task force members. So thank you so much for your participation. Then the virtual town hall on Wednesday, which is open to the community, which will be interactive and a great chance for us to get kind of people's thoughts and feedback on this initial project concept. Below that, you can see kind of our next couple steps. The week of November 2nd, so that kind of first November week, is when we're aiming to have feedback. I assume that this week, with all these interactions, we'll have follow-up questions, or we'll get remarks that we won't be able to respond to on the spot, but we might need to do some more research or come back. So that first week of November, looking to have kind of follow-up from any of the comments this week. And then the month of November, that's really when we'll be extra busy doing a lot of the analysis that Paul referred to, kind of diving in deeper with schedule, with program, with all kinds of those details, so that in the month of December, we can come back with that implementable plan, developing it, presenting it, and documenting it for that implementable plan you guys will have. Any other final remarks before we close out on the B&D side from the team? Great. Thank you very much, Council Member.
Thank you. Thank all of you guys for your work on this and just the collaborative nature of this process. I want to commend you guys on, keeping us apprised on your work through and through. And I look forward to the final presentation, where I'm sure we'll have plenty to discuss then, but I look forward to it, and I thank you guys.
Thank you. It's we enjoy the engagement with your wonderful community. We really do.
Thank you, sir. Alrighty, just in time for our 7 p.m. council meeting, I will entertain one final motion.
President Pro Tem. Go ahead, Councilor. This is President Pro Tem Hurtado. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second by Councilor Sadi.
All right, this meeting is adjourned. We will see you guys at 7. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to today's City Council meeting. Today is Monday, October 19th, 2020. I'm going to read just the logistics before we begin. Due to the ongoing national and state public health emergency caused by the global coronavirus pandemic, City of New London public meetings will be held virtually. Meeting agendas can be found at www.newlondonc.org. An audio recording of this meeting will be posted on the city website within 7 days of the meeting. Public comment may be submitted in writing to jstarts@newlondonct.org. If you prefer, you may sign up to speak at the following link on the City of New London website, newlondonct.org/live-stream. This link will bring you to a fillable form where you may submit your name and you will be added to the public comment list and called on via Zoom during the public comment portion of the meeting. Public comment must be submitted in writing or your name submitted on the fillable sign-up form on the city website at least 15 minutes prior to the scheduled start of the meeting. Please include your address in your written public comment submission. At this time, I'm going to call on City Clerk Ayala to make the roll call, please.
President Dominguez.
Present.
President Pro Temp Natartez.
Present.
Councilor Booker Jr.
Present.
Councilor Dice.
Present.
Councilor Burke.
Present.
Councilor Goodwin.
Present.
Councilor Sade.
Present.
All present.
Thank you. All right, also want to just, again, President Dominguez speaking. Let me just also recognize Mayor Passero, Attorney Landrigan, and every other guest that we have or department head this evening. With that said, I am going to begin with a presentation this evening. It is my honor and my pleasure to give this certificate of appreciation to someone that we all know in our city, on behalf of myself as the president of the council, and also from all the councilors and even the mayor. Before I do that, let me just read something I just wrote quickly. Ruben Santiago, a native New Londoner who is the CEO and founder of KOP, Keeping Kids Out of Prison, has been distributing boxes of food for several weeks to 8 families in our community throughout this pandemic. Tonight, we would like to honor him, his group of volunteers who have made time to be able to do this, thinking about others first instead of themselves. So for us, it is the honor to be able to present this to you, Mr. Santiago, and the certificate of appreciation reads as follows. Certificate of appreciation, the Council of the City of New London, on behalf of the citizens of New London, award this certificate to Ruben Santiago, founder and CEO of KOP, Keeping Kids Out of Prison, in grateful acknowledgement and appreciation of the services rendered and the time given by him to the city and its citizens by distributing 1,500 boxes of food to the community every week. Dated this first day of October 2020, dated this 19th day of October 2020, Council President Frank Dominguez Jr. and all the other councilors' signature is also there. So at this time, I'm going to open it up for any other councilor that wishes to, if you wish to say a couple of words, you may so at this time, but make sure that you state your name for the record and then you may proceed to speak.
Council President Dominguez, this is Councilor Sade.
Yes, sir.
At this point in time, I would like to say thank you very much to Mr. Santiago for all the work that he has done in the community and congratulate him on this award. Thank you very much.
Okay. Councilor Goodwin? Or, I'm sorry, Councilor Dice.
This is Councilor Dice, and I just like to say congratulations for being a valuable person in our community, for looking out for others, and for having an awesome team, because I saw you guys in action, and it's just really, from my heart, just thank you, because I know many of my families benefited from this, and we are just so thankful for all that you do. Council.
Councilor Goodwin here. I guess I'll go next. Share the same sentiments as all the other councilors. Thank you, Council President, for putting this together, especially during a time that we're in now. So to be able to celebrate our citizens, it's just, you know, how blessed we are here. To Mr. Santiago, just thank you. I've had a chance, I'm sure all the other councilors, I know the mayor and council president were there this weekend, to actually contribute and to, you know, pass meals to our constituents. And I just can't, you know, begin to express my gratitude and thank you. Just being able to witness the God bless yous and so many people being so appreciative of what you were doing. It's just, you know, the epitome of Whaler pride and New London strong. So thank you.
Go ahead, sir.
Council Booker, Ruben Santiago, man, you're an incredible brother, and just want to say, you know, continue up the great work, being such an asset to our community. Your energy, your positive energy, and also the team, incredible team. You guys have been doing this for so long. So, you know, just thank you so much for everything that you're doing in New London, and just continue being that pillar and that force in our city. Just want to say I love you guys, and just continue up the great work. Congratulations, brothers.
President Dominguez, this is Councilor Burke. I'll just take a minute and just, you know, thank so much, Mr. Santiago, for all that you do. You know, as public servants here, you know, we try to offer the best public services to those people in need, but it's sometimes, you know, it takes grassroots community people like yourself coming up to see a need and do something about it. You know, I took my daughter down for an hour or so at OIC the other week, and it was, you know, there was barely any work for us to help out because you just had such an efficient team. But it was so great to just, you know, see all the smiling faces and all that fresh fruit and vegetables going home to people that need it. So much well deserved, and thank you very much for your efforts, sir.
Okay, this is President Dominguez. Thank you, councilors. At this time, I'm going to open it up to Mayor Michael Passero to share a few words.
Good morning, Mr. President. To Mr. Santiago, I have to tell you that I was absolutely amazed at the effort last Saturday. Happy to help out. Great group of volunteers charged up. There was, you know, so many hands. You didn't have to overwork too many of us, but I'm glad you overworked the council president a bit. But it's just great to see so much community pride, and that's how we're going to get through this pandemic, all, you know, pulling together like that. So thank you very much. Well deserved. This recognition is very well deserved. Thank you,
President Dominguez. At this time, thank you everyone for your words, and at this time, I'm going to open up the mic to Mr. Santiago for a few words.
First of all, good evening to everybody. Thank you so much. There's no I in team. I cannot do this by myself. I got great volunteers. I want to give a big heartfelt. Mr. Majors helped me in a big part of this for getting Jenny school. Thanks to the Board of Education. Mr. Rosario, thank you for coming out the other day. You know, you had the hand truck. You was doing your thing. And so since I've been doing this, I fed 5,000 families. And it's just a blessing to give back to my community and all surrounding people. You know, this is just an amazing, it's just so heartfelt. I can go home knowing that I fed so many people, you know, I mean, that nobody's going to bed hungry, you know, and I had a part to do with that in my community and all my volunteers. So I'm just so honored to be a New London resident. Thank you all. Everybody that helped, we just all helping hands. We did it today. I got a olive branch today from Groton Senior Center. They had 500 boxes today. They couldn't distribute. They called me up. They said, Ruben, you already got, you got it flowing already. Can you please help us today? And literally in 2 hours, we did 500 boxes today. So, we definitely will be back out there this Saturday, starting at 10:30. Jennings School will be back out there. Again, we got 1,500 boxes. Come on down. Anybody want to volunteer? They're welcome. I'm doing it again. This Friday also, Groton Senior Center. You can send anybody over. We'll be over there at 10 o'clock distributing food. And I just want to thank you all. I'm so honored. I don't do this for recognition. I always behind the scenes. But, during this pandemic, I can't be behind the scenes because, so we're all over the place. But thank you. Much love to you all. And we all just can continue to going forward in this pandemic and helping each other out. I'm honored. Thank you all very much.
This is President Dominguez speaking. We thank you and we honor you tonight, brother. Thank you so much and keep moving forward, all right? Okay, so at this time, we are going to have Councilor Booker with the prayer and the pledge. I haven't forgotten.
All right. Thank you very much, President Dominguez. Please join me in prayer. Eternal God, thank you for blessing us with another day. Thank you for waking us up and giving us wisdom and knowledge and for protecting our loved ones. Tonight, please guide us as a council to work united and make decisions that will lead the city of New London in a positive direction. And guide us, Lord, to make choices together that allow all of our residents to feel safe, supported, and at peace within our community. And God, please continue allowing us to just stay connected and just continue moving our city forward. And thank you so much for allowing us to come together this evening, Lord. We love and appreciate you, Lord. Amen. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now, President Dominguez will recite the Pledge of Allegiance in Spanish.
This is President Dominguez. Prometo lealtad a la bandera de los Estados Unidos de América, a la República que representa una nación ante Dios, indivisible, con libertad y justicia para todos.
Thank you, President Dominguez.
This is President Dominguez. You're more than welcome. Okay, so at this time, there is no public hearings. I need a motion now for the regular meeting of October 5th, 2020. The minutes.
Councilor,
Go right ahead, Councilor Dice.
I'm at a loss of words for a moment. Sorry. This is Councilor Dice, approving the minutes for the regular meeting of October 5th, 2020.
This is Councilor Sadi. I'd be glad to second that motion.
Okay, it's been motioned and properly seconded. This is President Dominguez. All right, any discussion from any councilor? Okay, seeing none, we'll go and vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. Okay, thank you. At this time, we're going to go to public comment. Please make sure that when your name is called, state your name and address for the record. Again, state your name and address for the record. And just a reminder for everyone, every time we speak, state your name, please. All right. So at this time, the first public comment person on the list is none other than Karen Paul herself. Karen. She's on the phone. It's just trying to find her probably.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead, Karen. Oh, and you have 3 minutes. 3 minutes to speak.
Oh, well, I think I can make that. Karen Hall, 281 State Street. I just have one comment tonight. Well, maybe I have two. First of all, I am on the task force for the community center, and I know that seemed like one of the major concerns of the council tonight was transportation to the Fort Trumbull area. If you remember, before the pandemic, we were talking about a microtransit system. And at least as of last week, I think the mayor said it's on hold because of the virus, but it's not off the table. And if we get that microtransit system by the time that community center is built at Fort Trumbull, there won't be a transportation issue. So I just wanted to mention that to all of you. Secondly, I think Mr. Santiago is doing a wonderful job with all of food insecurity in town, but there are a lot of other groups that are also pitching in. Just to name a few: Chef Tom, Fresh, Ledge Light, some of the students from Connecticut College, the Connecticut Food Bank Dairy Express, and all the others. I know there's many, many more that are really helping our residents with their food insecurities. So I want to thank them all. And thank you guys. That's all. That's me. Bye.
President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Karen Paul. All right, at this time, the next person speaking will be Mia Moore.
Good evening to the council members, Mayor Prucero, and the committee members. Simply put, 3 minutes may not be ample time to express my request for any assistance. The council members who are best suited to myself, a woman-owned, Black-owned small business in the community. Just a reminder of my previous comments in regards to accessing the resources such as grants and diversity inclusive loan agreements for my handmade jewelry business, such as my Hollywood Fox Jewelry LLC. Safety and health first during this new normal. I've created a design that is motion sensor necklace to remind you to limit the touching of your face and mouth area. Although this Shiro Hero pendant is for all genders and ages 14 plus, it is still in the beginning and test trial stages. Since this device may limit the transmission of COVID-19, Mayor Prucero, as you already know, our community is showing signs of record increase right here in New London. Therefore, this wearable art, which I'm showing it now, it's technology. It should be considered for like an urgency grant to expedite the testing, assembly, and the launch. This could be something that's created and launched in New London, and my company can produce with a local-based consultant team I've already formed. We can get thousands of these units, and this unit is on now. You can see it. It's when I put my hand above, it vibrates just to kind of remind me that I'm going into an area. Before washing my hands, you want to kind of just have that reminder. So that is what I wanted to update the council with, because last time this was actually not fully made. It wasn't fully designed, but now, as you can see, it is. And I believe that it could be beneficial to our community, as I said. Again, thank you for your time and attention during this public comment.
1 minute.
Yeah, thank you for your time, for giving me this opportunity to share with you this exciting venture. I really would like for any council members who can assist with the process. If you have any ideas, I am open to those to help our community. Thank you so much.
President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Mia Moore. Okay, at this time, we are going to petitions. There's no petitions right now. And now we come to response to public comment. So any councilors who wish to respond to public comment, now is your time.
This is Councilor Dice speaking. First of all, it was nice to hear nice positive message from Karen Ball. So I just want to say thank you. And then for Mia Moore, thank you for keeping us abreast of what you're doing. And I just appreciate the fact that thinking of ways for us to be safe, because throughout this dealing with COVID-19, this pandemic, it's really important for us to constantly be reminded the importance of not, touching our face, not wash before we wash our hands. And so I do appreciate you keeping us abreast of what you're developing and what's going on. So thank you. This was Councilor Dice.
President Dominguez speaking. Any other councilor? Okay. All right. At this time, I just want to thank everyone that came and volunteered their time to speak this evening. Mia Moore and Karen Paul. Thank you. Let's continue. The next will be reports and communications. Director of Law. Anyone has any questions for Attorney Landrigan this evening? Okay. All right, Attorney Landrigan, I guess it seems that no one has, but you're going to be here still tonight, so that's important. All right. Council committee reports. Let's go to Councilor Goodwin.
Thank you, Council President. So tonight at 6 p.m., we had an Economic Development Subcommittee meeting with the B&D group and Director Reyes of ODP. They gave us kind of an update on what's possible in terms of the Community Rec Center, some issues regarding sustainability, location, as well as how their competitive analysis, contributed to the outcomes that they have. Just want to remind everyone that on Wednesday, we have more of a inclusive conversation on Wednesday where you're able to participate in asking questions at that time. But otherwise, it was a very insightful meeting, and I look forward to what's to come from that project. Thank you.
President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Councilor Goodwin. Any other councilor? Committee reports? Okay. At this time, we'll go into the Mayor's Office of Communications. Mayor Michael Passero, you have the floor, sir.
Good morning, Council. Good morning. Good evening, Council President and members of the council, members of the community. I guess I'm going to start off with our situation with the COVID. As we know, we're in the news as being one of those hotspots, red alert areas. We started out about a week ago as one of 4: New London, Norwich, Preston, and Wyndham. Within the next few days, many other cities and towns in the state joined us. So there appears to be a widespread increase in the infection rate in a number of communities. As I reported 2 weeks ago, we have been working very hard on this. We were actually aware of the increasing numbers. It's not a surprise that public health officials have been warning us that there would likely, the way a pandemic like this works, there would be a later surge. We were spared in the first wave of this pandemic in March and April and May. Though we were prepared, we didn't experience the level of community spread that we're experiencing now. So we have been working very, very hard. Our principal reaction is to join with our partners and greatly increase the access to testing. And that program is going very, very well. I have to thank Ledge Light Health District for their efforts. And of course, CHC, the Community Health Center. They are performing the testing, and it's such an amazing job. I really hats off to Yvette and her crew at the Community Health Center. So the testing is being done Monday through Friday, 8:30 in the morning till 4 o'clock in the afternoon at the Shaw's Office Park location, Shaw's Cove Office Park, and also in Groton at Gold Star Highway, which is a Ledge Light Health District site or community health center site. They're also doing 8:30 to 4. So those are the major hours. And then there's pop-up sites that are announced every week to provide additional access and additional hours. So for instance, on Wednesday this week, these are just the New London hours. You can get tested at the Alliance for the Living, and that's 9 to 1 on Wednesday. On Thursday, from 3:30 in the afternoon to 5:30 in the afternoon, you can get tested at Shiloh Baptist Church. That's on Garvin Street and Franklin Street. On Friday, you can get tested at Gordon Court. That's a New London Housing Authority property on William Street, and that's 9 to 1 on Friday. And then on Saturday, you can get tested at Riozzi Court. That's a New London Housing Center property on Coleman Street, and that's 9 to 1 on Saturday. So there are a lot of testing locations and testing opportunities. The testing is free. You don't need a doctor's order, and you don't need symptoms. We are encouraging everybody to find out their status, but then it's important to remember that that is just a snapshot in time. You're going to get your results within 48 hours, and all that tells you is up to that point, 48 hours earlier, you had not been exposed. Everybody has to remember to continue to practice. The most important thing that you can do to prevent yourself from acquiring this virus is to wear a mask. Wear a mask, wear a mask, wear a mask. We're being told by all of the scientists universally that wearing a mask is at least as effective and maybe more effective than when we get the vaccine. So you right now have a measure. You don't have to wait for a vaccine. You have a measure right now to be able to protect yourself from this virus, and that is to just simply wear a mask. We want you to wash your hands, keep your social distance, and the crucial thing right now, especially as we go into the holiday season, is to understand where the community spread is coming from right now. It's coming from informal, social, especially family gatherings. We are giving it and passing it among members of our own family because that's where we're getting together, we're letting down our guard, and we're not practicing these safety measures, especially wearing a mask. And the virus doesn't know that, that you're my brother, you're my mother, you're my grandmother. The virus doesn't know that. And if you unwittingly carry it home, you're going to infect somebody you love. So we have to keep that especially in mind as we go into the holidays and in our own homes and in our small social gatherings to make sure we practice these safety protocols. Moving on, I usually start my report with, with the loss of, if we have a loss of somebody in our community who contributed a lot. And I have the sad news to report that this past week we lost Josephine Josie Esposito. She was, lived a long and blessed life, and I saw her just recently, and she seemed to be doing well and healthy and still contributing to the city. So it's a great loss. Most of us in recent years know of her longstanding contribution to the Public Library of New London. She was just a devoted advocate, fundraiser, and champion of that institution, which serves all of our community. So sympathies to the family of Josie Esposito, and thank her for her service to the city. Good news today came to the Guard Arts Center and our other arts establishments in New London and throughout the state. The governor announced a $9 million funding opportunity for our arts institutions, our arts and cultural institutions. This is an enormous part of our local economy and the state economy. So it's really important, and it's also the sector of the economy that's going to have the hardest time to survive this. And it's very, very important that we help these institutions get through. I'm not going to go into all the details of the program, but it's complicated. It's mostly a matching situation. And I can tell you that the Seagulls from Guard Arts have told me that the number one goal is to get donations and pledges by November 1st. Any pledge and donation to the Guards, to the Guard Arts, or any other qualifying arts and cultural institution will be matched by the state. But the pledge has to be fulfilled by December 31st. So the important dates are very close. 2 weeks away, November 1st, that pledge or that donation has to be made. The pledge has to be fulfilled by 12/31, and the state's going to match that donation. So that would so any philanthropists out there, donors that want to get the most leverage out of their donation and help great institutions in our city, the clock is ticking right now, and the race is on. With regard to food insecurity, I want to thank everybody, all the institutions, all the groups that are helping with that. But just a reminder that we now are blessed to have a standing Dairy Express distribution at the Elks. And thank you for the Elks for hosting this. And it's every Thursday at 9 a.m. So that'll be there again this Thursday. It'll be the second or third time. The body cam program, I was asked about the timing at the last council meeting. It is now up and running. Our officers are wearing the body cams. The program is fully underway. You know, obviously they're still working out some bugs, but it's by all accounts, it's going very well, and we're proud of that. This obviously couldn't have happened within the last 6 months. We were working on it well before the unfortunate tragedy of George Floyd's murder, but we're proud to have had that much work towards it underway, and we rolled it out in the last 2 weeks. And thank you, Council, for approving the contract and the funding for that. Now, I just want to touch on the waterfront real quick, and I'll wrap it up. I'll touch on two last things: our waterfront, and then also in the realm of economic development, some of those efforts. But the waterfront, first of all, I presented a city plaque to the crew of Fireboat. That's the Firefighter. That's the New York City fireboat that was downtown as an attraction all summer. And we were happy to host them. And I was proud to give them a plaque in our appreciation for staying in our city for the summer. We have a number of by the way, the waterfront restaurant, the construction, pre-construction for that, so that it opens next spring, is underway. The utilities are being put under the pier to support the waterfront, seasonal waterfront restaurant for next summer. We're very excited about that. We're excited about the opportunities that's going to provide to fulfill others, to provide other waterfront amenities that we haven't really been able to have the overhead to afford. The restaurant will also be able to provide people with the opportunities to rent a kayak or a paddleboard or a fishing pole, those type of things, because they'll have the economies of scale, having a staff there already to be able to provide those amenities on the side. So we're really excited about the life that business will bring to our waterfront next season. We also have, through the City Port Authority, we've ventured into a contract with the contractor who's providing the boats for a marine contractor that operates out of Groton, and those boats are going to be stationed. We have a contract to station them at City Pier, and we also have it's going to be sort of a test, but we have a charter boat that's a winter fishing charter boat. It's quite a large luxury vessel that's going to be doing fishing charters through the winter out of City Pier for cod and that sort of thing. If you're a hardy individual, we're hoping that there's a good market, and so is the vendor. We're hoping for a good market out of this portion of Long Island Sound. The boat comes from the western portion of Long Island Sound, where it operates during the summer season. It's going to attempt to set up a business venture here in eastern Long Island Sound and heading out. So we're excited about that. I'm going to wrap up with just a really brief overview of the ODP's efforts at the seasonal holiday Christmas programs for our downtown. We have planning for that well underway, including the pop-up store initiative. So to individuals like Mia Moore, this is an opportunity. If you haven't reached out to our Office of Development and Planning, specifically Elizabeth Nocier, she is currently accepting applications for entrepreneurs, small businesses that want to take advantage of some incentives to. We're connecting the businesses with the owners of buildings downtown that have empty storefronts, making it very reasonable to get up and running, and also to provide a downtown experience for people and to attract people to downtown during the winter. So between the programming for entertainment and events during the winter, and this pop-up retail initiative, we're going to try to bring some life to the downtown during usually a very hard time here in New England for retail and restaurants. We've got to put the extra effort in it this year because of this COVID environment, and we especially want to get the word out to people that we can safely, we're not going to do anything that's not safe, but we can protect ourselves, we can protect our community, but we can also support our businesses and we can also support our community. We're going to be working closely with our public health department to ensure that we do everything in the safest manner possible. You'll see new signs going up downtown in the near future that are reminding people to wear their mask and practice social distancing while they're out in public downtown. Efforts like that and other public promotional initiatives. I'm going to leave it there. I feel like I went on too long, but if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Thank you, Mr. President.
President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Mayor Pastor. At this time, I'm going to call on Councilor Dice.
This is Councilor Dice. First of all, I'd like to say thank you, Mayor, for some really great resources with testing. And I would like to know, do you have a flyer? And it would be awesome to have it connected to our website so we know exactly where to get tested at, and I can share it, on Facebook or in other places. So I just want to say thank you for all that great information. And just, do we have it on our website yet?
We don't. It will be on the website tomorrow morning. You can find it on the Ledge Light Health District website, but we did a much better job last week getting the sites out. And you'll find a Facebook post on the city Facebook page tomorrow. And if you want to just share that, we'll get that out by sometime mid-morning tomorrow, and then you can all share it. And the first opportunity in New London is on Wednesday, 9 to 1 at Alliance for Living, along with the regular testing that goes on 7 days a week, Monday through Friday at Charles Cove Office Park.
And I have this is Councilor Dice. I have one more question, President. Mayor, I first of all like to say thank you for the fact that we have a safe place to put our ballot in and, for voting. So I really appreciate having that mailbox right there at City Hall. And it's 2 weeks away. And I'm just, I want to make sure that all of our citizens are aware that it is safe. It is out there. And I just want to know, have the city thought about ways of just communicating that out to the citizens? I know I've been watching the councilors and our state representatives doing little mini commercials, and I appreciate that. I'm just want to follow up with that because the voting is very important. And I just want to make sure that we're letting our citizens here know that they vote count and that they can utilize the mailbox once they get their ballot to make sure that they vote can get counted. And this is Councilor Dice.
Happy to work on getting the word out on that, Councilor Dice. I think that's an excellent point. We do need to get the word out. Our polling places are going to be safe. We're going to practice all the protocols that the state and the health department have put down on safe polling places. And the same goes for City Hall on Election Day. We are ramping up our efforts here so that City Hall will be, we have to use City Hall on Election Day. And we are taking very strong efforts to keep everybody safe. That has to be in this building on Election Day.
And President Dominguez, if I could say one more thing and then I will be done. We lost another member of our community, which was Reverend Cornish, and who was the pastor of Mount Moriah Church for many years. And I just want to make sure that is mentioned today because their family have been a strong supporter in our community, and just want to acknowledge that. And thank you, President, for allowing me to say those words. Our condolences to their family members.
President Dominguez speaking. Thank you for your questions and your comments, and even this last, statement that you just said. I mean, that's true. I remember Pastor Cornish. Matter of fact, I attended some of his services, even got to speak in his church, and he was such a great man, a man of faith, and he was always ended our conversations is peace and blessings.
Yes.
Y Dios te bendiga. So yeah, we do send our condolences to his family. For the many years that they served this community of New London. Okay, so with that, thank you. I'll have I think President Pro Tem Nartatis. Go ahead.
Thank you, President Dominguez. So good news, Mayor. Thank you for sharing that the body cams are out there. They are working as they should. We expected a couple glitches, but that's great news because this has been years coming. So I'm very excited to hear that. And thank you for honoring also Josie Esposito. Josie Esposito was my neighbor. And she's the reason I got involved with Friends of the Library. I mean, she was just she's an advocate, and even in her 90s had so much energy. So we're really going to miss her. And the Friends of the Library are really going to miss her. So I hope I live into my 90s. That's a pretty long life. Blessings to her family. That's all I have, President Dominguez. Thank you.
Thank you,
President. Go ahead.
I just want to add about Reverend Cornish. I did, and I apologize, and I'm embarrassed for overlooking that. He was a great man in the city, and I did represent the city at his services last week. So thank you, Riona. That would have been a terrible oversight.
Thank you. Any other councilor? This is President Dominguez speaking. Any other councilor that has a question for the mayor? Yeah, okay. All right. With that, okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Passer. All right. So at this time, I'm going to have President Pro Tem Nartatis with the consent agenda.
That the consent agenda proposal set forth at the regular meeting of Monday, December 19th, 2020 are either one, accepted for the record, referred to committee named, waived from committee to be acted upon as proposed, or four, consented to as proposed. Can I get a second?
Councilor Sadi will be gladly to second that motion.
President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Councilor Sadi. All right. At this time, I'm going to read them. Make sure, councilors, if you're going to pull it, let me know so I can write you down. Okay, so here we go. 7.0 unfinished business. 7.1A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. Okay, 7.2.
Councilor Sadi, close.
Okay, Councilor Sadi, I heard you first. Okay. Thank you. Point 2. 8.0, no new business. 8.1. 8.2. Was that someone? Okay. 8.3. 8.4.
Paul,
Was that President Pro Tem Natatas?
yes, it was.
Thank you. That was 8.4, right?
Yes, and I'm going to pull 8.5 as well.
Okay. All right. All right, so 8.4 and 8.5, President Pro Tem Natatas. Okay. Right. And then now 9.0, no appointments. Oh, no, there is appointments, excuse me. 9.0, 10.0, no executive session, and then 11.0 adjournment. Okay, at this time, I will call on President Pro Tem Natatas.
All items having the unanimous support of the city council are hereby adopted with a single roll call vote. The motions are seconded, the chair calls the roll, and the chair declares the motions to be unanimously voted and adopted.
Can I have a
I guess
second? Yeah.
Second, Councilor Goodwin.
Thank you. City Clerk Ayala, President Dominguez speaking.
Yes. Counselor Burke.
Yes.
Counselor Dice.
Yes.
Counselor Sade.
Yes.
Counselor Goodwin.
Yes.
President Dominguez.
Yes.
Counselor Booker Jr.
Yes.
President Pro Temp Natartes.
Yes.
Okay, 7 yes.
Okay, thank you very much. This is President Dominguez speaking. At this time, we're going to start with Councilor Sadi. Make sure you move it to Cam and then wait for the second, and then you may begin reading. Go ahead.
Yes, this is Counselor Sadi. I'd like to move the motion to Cam.
Counselor Dice, second it.
Ordinance police grants table from the October 5th, 2020 City Council meeting. I would like to first make a motion to remove that from the table.
Counselor, do you have two microphones on? You have an echo.
Yeah. Yeah, this is President Dominguez. Thank you, City Clerk Ayala. Yeah, I was wondering that, Sadi, because it's echoing and we can't.
Counselor Dice, point of order. I tried to understand what do that mean, pull from the table?
Maybe Attorney Lonergan could answer that.
Yeah, this is Attorney Londrigan. Typically, when something would be on a table, you have to remove it from the table in order to take it up at this meeting. However, at your last meeting, it was tabled to this date in particular. So I would say there is no need to remove it from the table. You can just move the cam and start your debate.
Thank you very much. This is Counselor Sadi. Thank you very much for that clarification, Attorney Lonergan. Therefore, then I will remove my motion to remove from the table, and I will move to Cam. The City Council approves ordinance number 10-05-20-02 in the amount of $101,135 made from accumulated funding received from the USDA Drug Enforcement Discretionary Fund. The ordinance is given its first and second reading in the process passed by title only. All councilors having roll call vote. The third regarding the subject ordinance is adopted by roll call vote. And I believe that was seconded by Counselor Dice, so I have no further comments on that motion.
Okay, so let me open it up to any other counselor that wishes to speak on this this cam right now. Any discussion on it?
This is Counselor Dice. My question, and I just wanted details of the type of training that was going to be provided. We had a budget and it was very vague. And I just wanted a little bit more detail of exactly what the funds was going to be used for. That's Counselor Dice.
Thank you, this is President Dominguez. I don't know if we have anyone that's available right now. I don't know if Attorney Law or the mayor. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I didn't see you. I apologize, Chief Reichert. All right, go ahead, sir.
The types of training that we provide for the department with this, this is asset forfeiture funding that we received over a number of different cases working with the Drug Enforcement Agency in the last couple of years. Once the a case is adjudicated through the federal courts, if there's any assets that are seized and they're awarded to the police department, they are deposited into this account. That's where this money came from, and it's accumulated for a number of different cases in the last couple of years. One of the types of training we're looking at doing is continue the crisis intervention training, or CIT training, for police officers. We're actually looking at entertaining a class where we can actually put it on ourselves, so we could maximize the number of New London police officers we can put through the CIT training. Presently, we have approximately 35 officers, and we're trying to get a majority, if not all, of the department trained in crisis intervention training. Other types of training we're looking at doing is the diversity training, inclusion training. If we can find trainers to actually come into the police department and train the entire agency over a 1 or 2 week period. And some of these are quite costly. So this funding would be typically used for that, for paying the trainers to come in. And at times, if there's a lot of backfill that we need, we have the ability to use some of this funding to do the backfill for the overtime to keep people on the street while we're doing that.
This is Counselor Dice. Thank you for the detail. I appreciate the training. And I just want to make sure I understand the CIT training. Is that the crisis training? Is that when, say, someone need help? We were talking about when you send people out from, I can't think of the organization now, I'm drawing a blank, where they need help. Maybe somebody's is dealing with something that's not violent, but just needed that type of support. Is that what this training? It sounds like that's what it is. Crisis.
Yeah, it could involve people with violent behaviors. It teaches officers how to address people who are not in their right state of mind. If they're having a violent outburst or anything, it teaches de-escalation tactics. It teaches officers a different way to try to approach people, to try to talk them down so we can get them the help they need from the hospital. So that's one aspect of it, but it could be violent, could be non-violent. It's overall, the officers, when they go through the CIT training, they don't realize it, but after a time that almost everybody they talk to, they're using some form of this training on everybody that they're talking to. It's just their standard way of operating when they're doing their business, and they put that in. They put that swagger into their talk with people, and they're able to use that, and it helps them become a better rounded police officer.
Okay. Counselor Dice, thank you so much, Chief.
You're welcome, Counselor Dice.
President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Chief Reichert, and also Councilor Dice for those questions. All right, at this time, seeing no one else that has a question or a comment on this, we will proceed to vote. This is a roll call.
President Dominguez, this is Councilor Sadi. Okay. At this juncture, I would like to make one comment.
Okay, so go ahead. You have the floor.
In these trying times, when we see so much police violence, or at least perceived police violence, I am just glad that we in the city of New London, through our administration and police department administration, are showing leadership and teaching our officers that there are other ways other than to pull a weapon on somebody, and that we are being trained to properly de-escalate situations. And I'm glad to be a part of that. So thank you to the administration, and especially to the administration of the police department. I plan on voting in favor of this motion. Thank you very much.
Okay. President Dominguez speaking. Is that Councilor Booker? Are you? Go ahead, sir.
Yes. Thank you very much, President Dominguez. To you, President Dominguez, to Chief Reichert. Chief Reichert, you mentioned implicit bias training and also diversity training. What agencies have you looked into for that type of training, and when will the training take place?
Captain Wright has been forefront for that for the police department. One of the agencies in the state that we look at is called Noble, and they do a lot of training. They do a lot of the crisis intervention training. So we'll be relying on some of the trainers through those programs. We'll also be looking at ones that are Connecticut Post or Police Officer Standard Training certified, so that way we can add the types of training we do to our accreditation process and add that in when we go down the line for the next reaccreditation. And when it comes to training, presently we are going through our annual fall firearms training curriculum. We're ending up at the end of this week with the command staff going some point next week, and then the retirees shortly after. Anyone who qualifies for the House bill where they can carry when they're retired. And we just finished our body camera training. So our next series of training in early November is going to be taser training and de-escalation with tasers. And that's a hands-on 2-day program with VR glasses and the full outfit where you're actually be able to discharge the taser at a dummy-shaped screen that can, show you the different aspects of it. So we'll be looking at probably sometime after the first of the year using this funding when we can arrange it to get the department through the training. Usually our winter time is our downtime. Although we're busy almost every day, we're more down in the winter with some of our time, so we have a better ability during those months to actually train our folks in-house in larger groups.
I have one more question. So thank you very much, President Dominguez. So through the taser training, will Axiom be providing some of that training as well?
Axon is actually, it's train the trainer. So we have a number of taser trainers in the department. They've been trained or being trained through Axon in the latest model, the T7 that we're going to be issuing. So they will go in smaller groups and they will work with each individual officer and train the trainer. My 33 years, I've never been issued one, but because of the body cameras, I'm going to be issued one. So I'm going to go through the training too. And hopefully they don't have to zap me with a taser because I really don't feel like I need to be zapped.
Thank you very much. No further questions.
Okay, President Dominguez speaking. Thank you. I see Councilor Burke. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Through you to Chief Reichert, just one question on when I'm looking at the dollar amount breakdowns. New equipment is the largest sum of $68,135. So I assume training isn't in new equipment, and could you just clarify what sum of money would trainings be under, and then what sort of things would be under this $68,000 for new equipment?
We've been looking for the new equipment. We've been looking at a crime scene scanning unit, which is costly. It's in the $40,000 to $50,000 range. What it does, it gives a 100% accurate picture of any type of crime scene, whether interior or exterior, through a laser scanner and a computer. So that's one of the big items we've actually been looking at with this asset forfeiture funding to purchase that. The training would fall under different areas. We can always at a later time transfer money around if we need it from one area to another in that. We also have a state asset forfeiture account where we do have funds available to pay for some of the training also.
Thank you very much. That sounds like a very worthy piece of equipment and investing in. Other than that, one being the larger sum, is there any other equipment that this money would be going towards?
There's small things here and there that we purchase through here throughout the years. If there's in equipment they need for the detective division, whether it be covert audio recording equipment or video equipment, sometimes we purchase or replace broken or outdated equipment through that. Sometimes it's camera equipment for the detectives. So when they actually go to a scene, they have a newer digital camera that they can actually snap photos with of. One thing we've been looking at, actually two things we're looking at for officer safety is a fuming hood like you'd see in a laboratory. So when you do narcotics testing, you could do it underneath that. And also one for forensic testing if they want to do fume or super glue firearms or anything like that. You have a safe area to do that in. So we're also looking at possibly funding some of these out of this money also. It depends on availability and it depends on the total cost of the crime scene scanner. The one we looked at was in the $40,000 to $50,000 range.
I'll keep my fingers crossed that we get it for a good price. This was Councilor Burke. Nothing further. Thank you very much, Chief.
You're welcome.
Okay. This is President Dominguez. At this time, seeing no one else that has a question for the chief, we will proceed to vote. All right. This also is a roll call vote. City Clerk Ayala.
Counselor Dice.
Counselor Dice seems to be muted.
Sorry, I was on mute. Excuse me. Yes.
President Dominguez.
Yes.
Counselor Sade.
Yes.
Counselor Burke.
Yes.
Counselor Booker Jr.
Yes.
President Pro Temp Natartez.
Yes.
Counselor Goodwin.
Yes.
7 yes.
Okay, President Dominguez speaking. The motion carries. All right, next we have President Pro Tem Nartatis.
Move the CAM 8.4.
Counselor Dice.
Was that Counselor Dice second?
I believe so.
So this is a question for McBride, if he's on through you, President Dominguez. Is Director of Finance on?
Yes, he's on.
Okay, so I just, and I apologize because I could have reached out to you earlier, but as right now I'm just a little confused. The monies originally came from the state library, what is it called? The state library fund grant. And then this particular money was used to preserve historic documents. And we had a surplus, and what we're doing with the surplus in the amount of $9,000 is we're feeding it back into the city clerk's office, in a dedicated line item fund. Is that correct?
We can't hear you, McBride, Director McBride.
I apologize.
That's okay.
Mr. Director McBride, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, that is exactly correct. There was an available balance from several years ago. I think it was 2012. That again, as we're going through the county records, clearing things up, we found an available balance. In working with City Clerk Ayala, there is a need for some additional costs due to the pandemic and the additional expenses. So he would be more apt to explain the exact details of what he'll be using the expenses for. But the thought is to utilize those additional funds that were not appropriated previously.
So, thank you, Finance Director McBride. So I guess, $9,000 is a lot of money, and I'm not doubting that the state clerk's office is going to be put to good use. I guess my question is how do we know if it's just going to be it's just $9,000 in a line item? I mean, is that something that is rolled up under the annual budget? I guess is a question for the mayor.
This is Director McBride. You want me to answer that, Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, the $9,000 based upon the appropriation, if you were to approve it, would be specific to that line item, other purchase services. So that money could not be spent for any other item. It would be earmarked for the other purchase services line item.
Okay, all right, that's what I wanted to know. All right, thank you, Director McBride. I don't have any other questions. Thank you, President Dominguez.
This is President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, President Pro Tem Nartatis. Any further discussion from any other counselor on this item? On the CAM. Okay, seeing none, we will vote. This again is a roll call vote. So City Clerk Ayala, go ahead, sir.
Counselor Booker Jr.
Yes.
President Pro Temp Natartez.
Yes.
Counselor Goodwin.
Yes.
Counselor Burke.
Yes.
Counselor Sade.
Yes.
President Dominguez.
Yes.
Counselor Dice.
Yes.
7 yes.
Okay, President Dominguez speaking. The motion carries. Right, now let's move 8.5, President Pro Tem Nartatis.
Move the CAM.
This is Counselor
Burke, second.
All right, Counselor
I'll
Burke.
go ahead and read the CAM first. City Council approves Ordinance 1019-2004 in the amount of $56,000 made from funds received and available fund balance with the Farmland Preservation Project to pay related expenditures within the city clerk's office. The ordinance is given its first and second reading in the process of passage by title only. All councilors having copies, and the third reading of the subject ordinance is adopted by roll call vote. Through you, President Dominguez, this once again kick back to Director of Finance. So unlike 8.4, where we had backup material, I don't see, maybe I missed it in the backup material, what is the farmland preservation project? That was for.
Yeah, who's that?
Yeah, I apologize. City Clerk Ayala, will you be able to provide some additional documentation or clarification on that?
Sure, no problem.
Thank you.
So the Farmland Preservation Project was a legislative action that took place at the state level for the Connecticut State Library to raise funds from all the municipalities based on how many land transactions occurred. So they created this Farmland Preservation Project. That's the name they've titled it. And what it does is it allows municipalities, or not municipalities, it allows the state library to draw fees from every land transaction that's recorded within a municipality, which I provided the backup for. And then a portion of those fees goes into this line. And this is considered a special revenue line that's not part of the general budget. So this amount you see here is just an accumulation of the many years, and it's just been rolled over. I mean, it grows every month, if you will, but it's just money that's been rolled over.
So I see the backup where you provided the ledger on this. Now, if this was a designated fund, what percentage, obviously it's not 100% if we have $56,000 in there. So what percentage are we obligated to give back to the state library? Do we know?
Yes, we do. So in the backup, if you go to the backup, I provided kind of a quick breakdown of the fee structure. There's an email attachment to the backup where it talks about the dollar fund and some of the way that because it's based upon certain recordings. So for the land records document, $1 is retained by the town clerk, and $36 is submitted monthly to the state treasurer. That's one portion. If it's a MERS document, $110 is submitted to the state treasurer, $39 retained for the town general fund, and then $10 goes to the town clerk fund. So the breakdown is there. So every month I have to submit 8 state reports to the state of Connecticut. They have different divisions, and one of those reports is a historic preservation report that gives them an entire breakdown of all the revenues we took in reference to land recordings. And there's a system that they use, accounting, that there's a breakdown that's automatically done. So, I mean, if you want to see those reports, I'll be more than happy to send you.
No, I mean, you've done a, this is President Pro Tem Mercado. No, you've done a good job explaining it. It's just my only, I guess I was surprised. $56,000 is a lot of money from, $36 fees or $5 fees. So I would assume that this is years of accumulation. And now that we identified it and we're putting these funds back into the city clerk's office, once again, this is going to go to a dedicated line item for, and I guess you could answer that, or the director can answer that.
Yeah, I mean, I believe I can answer that. Yes, it will, and it's only because you have to follow statute. It can't be part of the general fund. It's designated for specific uses.
Okay. All right, that's all I have. Thank you, President Dominguez.
President Dominguez speaking. You're more than welcome, President Pro Tem Mercado. Are there any other councilors that wish to speak on this camp right now? Okay, looks like it's a no. All right, with that said, let's vote. This is also a roll call vote. City Clerk Ayala?
Hey, Councilor Dice.
Yeah.
Councilor Goodwin.
Yes.
Councilor Burke.
Yes.
President Pro Temp Latartes,
Yes.
President Dominguez,
Yes.
Counselor Booker Jr.,
Yes.
Counselor Sadai,
Yes.
7 yes.
Okay, the motion carries. At this time, I will entertain one last motion from Councilor Sadi.
Counselor Sadi will make a motion to adjourn.
Can I get a second, please?
Second, Council Booker.
Councilor Booker, thank you. Has been seconded. All right, now all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay.
Nay.
All right. All right.
Showing you that we stuck around for it.
Okay. You guys have a good night. All right. Take care.
Adios.